Kia ora koutou. Ko Dila Beisembayeva tōko ingoa, and I'm Senior Implementation Lead Micro-Credentials at Te Pūkenga. And I think I should have gone first, so you would have gone after me because you had an amazing presentation. Huge, big shoes to fill, but nevertheless, thank you so much for the invite to be here tonight. Oh. All right, so when I first was asked to come and join in, I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to, I have got nothing really to share. Masood convinced me. We had this call, and I said, well, I don't really do slides, and some actually laughed at me. And I said, okay, I'll come up with 4 slides, and it'll be just pictures there. But before we get it started, I'll tell you a little bit myself. I came to New Zealand, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to, I have got nothing really to share. Masood convinced me. We had this call, and I said, well, I don't really do slides, and some actually laughed at me. And I said, okay, I'll come up with 4 slides, and it'll be just pictures there. But before we get it started, I'll tell you a little bit myself. I came to New Zealand in 2007. I was born in a country that no longer exists, I tell people that, which is Soviet Union. So I moved here in 2007, and I absolutely loved it, and I still love living in this country. So I now call New Zealand my home, and I'm very, very privileged to have been welcomed by the generosity of the people of New Zealand, of Aotearoa, and ever since joining the tertiary sector, which actually happened a few years later after that, all I do is, I try to give back to the community, to the amazing people of Aotearoa. So thank you so much for welcoming people like myself and others into this beautiful country. Anyway, let's move on. All right, who remembers a beautiful picture? I mean, Shameen, you've finished your speech with that. So beautiful empty motorway. So for those of us who live outside of Auckland, you're probably like, yay, that's the perfect picture. But that's roughly 2020. And we know what happened then. So as I said, I've joined tertiary sector 12 or so years ago. And I worked across different, actually joined an operations team or administration. Then I moved into the academia and developed a number of programs. And about three or so years ago, I heard this word, micro-credentials. Have you heard of that word before? Mm-hmm. Right, awesome. So bite-sized learning, getting people or providing opportunities to reskill and upskill for those who maybe already have the fundamental skills and they want to pathway into something different. So I got excited by that, and I was very lucky that at the time I had the manager who, when I went to him and I said, hey, there's this really cool thing, micro-credentials, can I do it? And he goes, write me a business case and we'll consider that. So I wrote the business case, and I don't think he expected that I would write a business case. He probably thought, oh yeah, she's just gone now, out of sight, out of mind. I came back with a business case, and I proposed that we set up a little sort of a center where we could do sort of the innovation that we can do in academia, going back to your earlier point, where we could work with industry in shorter span of time, right? So that, and provide opportunities for those who don't necessarily have a year, 2 or 3 years to complete a qualification, and maybe want to upskill in a shorter period of time. So in roughly about 2019, I got a yes, like, yeah, okay, go ahead and do that. And that was the time when, so I was part of Unitec at the time, and we developed the New Zealand Diploma in Cybersecurity. We actually launched, I think, late Feb, and literally 5 days later, we had a lockdown. And I thought to myself, damn, so much work has gone into this. We've got all these businesses on board that are willing to be part of it. It still worked out. All went well. But sort of towards the end of that 2019, I started playing around more with micro-credentials. And that's when AWS, I'm sure you've heard of AWS, Amazon Web Services, reached out to me and they said, hey, we have this program called AWS Restart, which runs worldwide. It's a 12-week program that looks at providing more opportunities for underrepresented communities in the country and whatever those communities are in each country. Is this something you would like to trial at New Zealand? I said, yeah, why not? Let's do it. I usually say yes, and then I think. But most times it works out because I have an amazing team of people that support me, so that's fantastic. Sorry, that wasn't 2019, it was actually 2020. So we launched the cyber, and then towards the end of the year, I got approached by AWS. So that was about October. And I thought to myself, 12 weeks, how hard can it be? Sure, let's do it. Now, by then we'd run maybe, I think, almost 2 intakes of Cybersecurity Diploma, and what was evident to us is that many learners that come into the ATP or Te Pūkenga sector are those that are interested in employment outcomes first, and then some of them are interested in further opportunities in academia, which is fantastic. But the majority of learners we're attracting into the Cyber Diploma were interested in employment opportunities. And we were able to do that by partnering with businesses like Datacom and Spark that would offer internship opportunities to those that are part of the Cyber Diploma. So I thought to myself, why don't we do the same with the cloud, right? Why don't we provide the same, but in a shorter and sharper period of time? So I went back to my friends at Datacom and others. I was like, hey, thank you for supporting Cyber Diploma, but would you consider doing something similar in the cloud space? And because I'm so convincing, actually I just ask a lot of questions and all the time, it's just easier for people to say yes to me. They said, sure, let's give it a go. So when I had an initial sort of yes, we'll think about it answer from the industry, that's when I went back to AWS and I said, yep, let's give it a go and see how we can make it happen in Aotearoa. So, oops, why am I pointing here? So here's the process. So we brought it to, when we decided that we're going to bring it to Aotearoa, I want, the program runs in the US and UK, and depending on the country you're looking at, the priority groups are different. In New Zealand, we know there's a very, number of Māori Pacifica intake is very, very low, so 4% and 2.7% respectively. We thought, okay, we're going to focus on those groups. But because we're in the midst of pandemic and there were so many people who are losing their jobs, I said, well, our third category of learners should be those that have lost the job because of COVID, those who became unemployed because of what's happening in the world. AWS said, yep, sweet, let's do that. So what we did was to say, okay, so it's going to be 12 weeks of training followed by an internship, which we then hoped would lead to employment outcomes for our learners. So between sort of October, November-ish, it took us roughly 5 to 6 months, including the Christmas holidays, to launch this program in April of 2021. So there's a lot of work that goes behind program creation. Those of you, program development, those of you who have been part of that, I'm sure are familiar, but there's a lot of consultation back and forth and ensuring that it meets the learners' outcomes. But it's just never one person behind that. So that's what I tell all of our students and graduates, that behind every single, which I hope is an amazing micro-credential, there's an army of people that really, really want to make it happen. So we were lucky, we got some funding from government agencies. We partnered with MSD, we've worked with MBIE to make this 12-week program 100% free for end users or learners, followed by an internship, 4-week internship minimum. Again, we hope that would lead to employment outcomes. As part of that, further to the earlier call, we want to ensure that not only we're developing the hard skills, we're also working on enterprise or soft skills as well. So there were a lot of workshops that students were provided with to ensure they're successful. All right, so, and here's the outcome. Top left picture, you see that's us welcoming the first cohort of learners of AWS Restart Micro-Credential to the beautiful kotahitanga Marae, which is located at Unitec in Point Chef, Mount Albert. So if you're over that way, check it out. It's absolutely stunning building. And you might say, whoa, that's a huge class of people there. We actually started off with 11 learners. I try to take a very cautious approach. I love to start small and grow big. We want to see whether or not this is a program that will be of service to New Zealand learners and businesses as well. And I'm pleased to confirm that out of the 11 learners we had, 8 of them got an employment post-graduation. Others decided to go further, and others chose that the tech is not for them. And that's one of the other beauties of micro-credentials in my view, is that in a relatively short period of time, learners get an opportunity to decide whether or not that's the right field for them. And it's try before you buy for both parties, especially when the internships are involved, so that the learner could go and say, hey, I see myself growing in tech, or actually, you know what, I've given it my all, I don't see myself doing this. But that's okay, no worries, I only spend, I don't know, a few weeks rather than a few years trying to get to that spot. We were lucky when we launched that we were like in the middle of different stages of COVID. We actually managed to deliver almost the entire intake in person, the first intake. Towards the end, went into lockdown again. And that's when we decided that from now on, we'll just deliver online. And the reason being is that going in class and online in person just causes a lot of disruption to the teaching and learning process. So we thought, okay, we're just going to do it online from the start. And if for whatever reason we go out of lockdown, that's great, but we're just going to carry on. And however, internships will be happening in person. So here you can see, so that was the welcome ceremony in person. And the reason there's so many other people is just like I said, there's a whole army behind it, right? So not everyone's in the picture. This was the welcome online. This is just one of the events that educators took our students to at AWS, and this is another classroom activity. Topic was Mahi, kotahitanga and education, and to me education is all about Mahi, kotahitanga or collaboration or cooperation. In my view, if we as education sector want to provide amazing outcomes for our learners, we have to collaborate with one another across the sector, with industry, with learners, with communities, with the whānau and other agencies to ensure we deliver to the outcome. And I believe that's it. Kia ora. Thank you. All right, sure.